almost everything in there was already in the public domain, which did not make it look like they were ending this cover-up. The influencers were pissed, and so Bondi pivoted, blaming the FBI and claiming that she'd unearthed a truckload of previously withheld documents at the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Southern District of New York.
You're looking at these documents going, these aren't all the Epstein files. You know, there were flight logs, there were names and victims' names. And we're going, where's the rest of the stuff? And that's what the FBI had turned over to us. And so a source said, whoa, all this evidence is sitting in the Southern District of New York. Yeah. So based on that, I gave them the deadline, Friday at 8, a truckload of evidence arrived. It's now in the possession of the FBI.
The problem was that Trump's name appeared thousands of times in those Epstein documents, which Bondi had the unenviable task of telling Trump in May of 2025. In July, the DOJ issued an unsigned memo stating that there was no client list and no evidence that Epstein had blackmailed anyone and that no further discussions would be appropriate or warranted. Now, they tried to frame that as a move to protect Epstein's victims, but that was somewhat undercut by the fact that they simultaneously closed all the ongoing investigations into Epstein's co-conspirators. And look, I don't know if Bondi really believed that she was going to be able to stuff that genie back in the bottle, but if she did, she was sorely mistaken because Representative Thomas Massie led a handful of House Republicans to side with old Democrats to pass the Epstein Files Transparency Act. And although Speaker Mike Johnson held off the vote as long as he could, the law passed in November of 2025, giving the Justice Department 30 days to release all the Epstein files in its possession. The DOJ missed that deadline, and when millions of pages were eventually released, they were heavily redacted, sometimes to the point of uselessness. And Bondi's performance in Congress did not help either. In February of 2026, she appeared before the House Judiciary Committee and lobbed insults at the legislators asking her about Epstein.
You don't tell me.
Yeah, I did tell you because we saw what you did in the Senate.
You're a lawyer, not even a lawyer. This guy has Trump derangement syndrome. He needs to get, you're a failed politician.
That's where she made her infamous comments about the Dow being over $50,000 so no one can ask about the world's most famous pedophile. She also refused to even look at the victims.
Will you turn to the survivors? This is not about anybody that came before you. It is about you taking responsibility for your Department of Justice and the harm that it has done to the survivors who are standing right behind you and are waiting for you to turn to them and apologize.
I'm not going to get in the gutter for her theatrics.
Representative Nancy Mace said Bondi handled the Epstein files in a terrible manner and made this situation far worse than it had to be for President Trump because, if you think about it, isn't Donald Trump the real victim here?